How's it going? So I've gotten actually quite a bit of comments and questions about the new CGC like scam kind of thing that's going on with people taking a newsstand edition and then somehow turning into a Mark Jewelers edition, but it's a different book entirely, but it's in the same serial number. If you've been following what Swaggle House has been doing, I mean, he's had multiple videos on it. I'm not going to touch on it too much. Obviously, you're here for my thoughts on it, so you obviously know what's going on, but I'll give a little refresher course on it. Okay, so here is the book in question that sparked all this, and this is a Spider-Man 252 and a 9.8 Mark Jewelers, and went for 15 grand. Now, if you can see up here, it says newsstand Mark Jewelers. So people are like, okay, but the weird thing about this, if you here, you can look at the sale of it. Here's the official sale offer, go collect, and you can see Mark Jewelers insert newsstand edition. But look at that serial number. That is the key right there. The serial number, I'll read off the last basically, is 00004. So 4 zeros and a 4. Now, if you look up this sale, which happened in August, so this Mark Jewelers one happened December 12th for 15 grand. And then this one, August 3rd, for about 2,200. Newsstand edition, same exact serial number, 00004. Same one. I don't know if you can see right there, but it's the exact same serial number. How can that be? And so you would think like, oh, maybe this person noticed that it had a Mark Jewelers in it and CGC just didn't mention it. And so they sold it for, a normal newsstand price, and then the person got it and then reholdered it. And got the Mark Jewelers, which is much more expensive. But what you can see, it's really easy to tell that it's not the same book. So if you look at, just look at the edging. The edging is like perfect edging. And then the corner is perfect. Hard to see in maybe on this video, but you can see a little tiny something going on up there. Let's see if I can, right there. A little something going on up at the top corner, top left corner. And a little something on top right corner. And just look at the binding on the side, the spine. As you can kind of see on the left side where that staple is poking out, you can kind of see the back cover that's, wrapped around. That's common. But if you look at the other one that sold, you can't see any staple, bottom staple near the UPC code and that. So obviously you guys know this. Now this person has multiple books that are questionable. He has another Mark Jewelers, this Secret Wars, and a 9.8. Another Mark Jewelers, New Mutants, 98 and a 9.8. The list goes on. Now this Canadian variant Hobgoblin right here, obviously that's really easy to tell because you can just look at the price. But yes, all these like 9.8s, questionable things, newsstands, things like that. Fantastic Four number 4 and 7.5. And so the question is, how is this Spider-Man same serial number as this newsstand? So that's really the question, is how'd that happen? And I've been like trying to think, honestly. So here's an example. Here's a Daredevil. It's got cracked, right? It's already cracked. I was going to submit this in for a holder. Now, I can take off the bottom here, right? And I can slide it out. So this is how they look. In case you didn't know, I have to probably break this a little more, but I can slide this out. This is how they come. You got the case, right, with the 9.6 Daredevil 186, and then you got the book. See, this goes in there, but they're separate. They're not tied to each other at all. So theoretically, they could, my only guess is they would slip out one book and put it in with the other like that. Now, this is where it kind of gets weird. So I get it if you had, let's pretend this is a Daredevil 1. All right, for the sake of argument. You have Daredevil 1 and a 9.6. You could theoretically crack the case, take out a Daredevil 1 as well, restored, missing a coupon, maybe a 9.2 instead of a 9.6, something, close enough where people won't notice. Maybe it has like a stain on the inside, so it looks really nice, but just has a stain. And then you slide it in, and then you slide it in like this, and then you say it's a cracked case. You send it off to CGC, and then they reholder it, give you a brand new case, And now you have a restored Daredevil 1 and a Daredevil 196. Now that to me, like, obviously it's bad, but like, I understand that logic. And to me, I don't know how CGC does it, but I imagine if you could compromise and switch it out, that CGC wouldn't just give you a reholder. I don't know. I have no idea. I would imagine if someone could just slip a book in and out, that they're smart enough. Like when someone sends me this, like this, which I have had before, and they'll send me the label for my auctions, you know what I do? I cut this thing out and take it out because I don't know what they sent me. All I know is that they can claim that this label goes with this book. How the hell am I supposed to know? First rule, don't trust anyone. So I don't know. Could be pulling a fast one. And the last thing I want to do is screw someone over that bought it. So I will cut it out and I will pull it out and then I will look through the pages. I will grade it myself, all that kind of stuff. And I give it the grade that I think it is, not what this label says. And sometimes if I'm like, okay, this looks like it could be like the 9.6, you know, I'll put it there. No missing pages, no restoration, all that kind of stuff. Because if I'm putting my stamp of approval on it, you know, I got to check these stuff out. This book just in a plastic, it could be missing a coupon. Who knows what's happening to it? So I can understand that, sliding something in that doesn't belong there. And that could be like those other ones, like the Fantastic Four, number 4 and a 7.5, things like that. But the hardest part for me to understand is originally graded, the serial number graded no Mark Jewelers. So how did they have a Mark Jewelers all of a sudden? The only way they could possibly have a Mark Jewelers all of a sudden is if the guy slipped it out. Let's say he bought a 9.8 newsstand Spider-Man 252. He then slides in a Mark Jewelers 9.4, because looking at the pictures, that didn't look like a 9.8. I would say, I don't know, I don't have it in hand, but it looked a pretty bad 9.8. Could it be a 9.8? I don't know. But based off the picture, I would say it's more of a 9.6, maybe even 9.4. I don't know. I'd have to see it in hand. But there's definitely some things wrong with it that didn't warrant a 9.8. But again, CGC's messed up before. So if you slipped in, if you had the 9.8 Mark Jewelers, if you wanted that case, you'd slip in a Mark Jewelers, and then you'd have to put a note on it saying, hey, you screwed up, CGC. You forgot to notate that there's a Mark Jewelers on it. So then, obviously, I'm assuming they wouldn't just take the customer's word for it. They would open it up, take it out, like, oh, wow, we did miss the Mark Jewelers. Our bad. We'll put that on the label because he just slipped in a 9.4 Mark Jewelers. And then they don't want to regrade it, because they're lazy. So all they do is like, oh, it was a 9.8 before, still a 9.8. We missed the Mark Jewelers, write that in there, Mark Jewelers. That'd be the only way that would make sense. But then again, CGC would have to open this up, check that there's a Mark Jewelers inside, and then decide not to regrade it, and then just take the word for it that they graded it before and it was a 9.8 and they just happened to miss the Mark Jewelers. That'd be the only way that I could feasibly see that. But for that to happen, CGC would have to be extremely lazy. Now, I'm not saying that they're not lazy. Most likely they are. But that's a very bad business model, which makes me think, how many times has this happened before? Because this seller, who's a fool, the reason why I'm saying he's a fool is because he got greedy. And usually when people get greedy, that's when they get found out, is he just did a bunch of them. And people are like, whoa, where did this come from? And it's one thing to have like one on there, but when they look at 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all suspect like this, hey, this was just bought. I think there was a Hulk 181 on there, or maybe someone else's, and it showed like a qualified one, and then it was a non-qualified one, something like that. I don't know. So obviously they're getting past CGC. So now you're caught up to speed. I'm sure you guys all know this. So here's the big question. What does CGC do about this? So this is what I think. You guys feel free to jump in the comments below and tell me what you think. Number one, they used to tie this case to this label. They used to be one and the same, but it had a slit on top and you could easily slide it in and out. So that was no good. If they tied it to this label, so this and this label are one and the same. Like, look, they're in two separate cases. This is in its own little case up here, and this is in this case here. If you tie it, now I know why they don't want to tie it, because then they would have to have these terrible glue lines, right, that would go over this nice pristine looking label. That's why. They want it to look pristine looking. It's very pristine looking. That's why. So, okay, well, they would lose some of the presentation, but then this book would be tied to this. Now, or you could etch in this serial number up here, this serial number, this one ends in 53012, and then you could etch it in here. You ever see those like clear etchings, like maybe you have like a gold tinge to it or something? I have no idea. Just put like a little etching in there so that this book, anyone that wants to know they have this book, they can look at this. Oh, this is completely sealed. Like I couldn't open this. I would have to literally cut it open. And I look and it's like, oh, this serial number back here matches the serial number here. Okay, they're one and the same. Now, CGC would, maybe they don't want to do that because one, costs. It would cost, you have to go to a whole nother machine to print, etch in a serial number. Maybe it damages the book when it's etching in. I don't know how those things work. Number two, maybe they're like, oh, it just detracts from the book because now you have this serial number that covers the bottom corner of the book, of the back. They could say something like that. Maybe you could etch it up here. There's some room up here. You could etch before the glue if you wanted to, etch it up here. They probably don't want to do it because it costs money. You got $500 million in funding. Come on, spend a little money. It would probably cost the customer an extra $1, but at least they know they're being secure, right? So maybe you could etch it up here. Maybe you change this so it's a little taller and you etch something in here. Maybe you etch the name, what it is. Daredevil 18696, etch in the serial number. Something like that, just like a little laser like etch thing. I've seen them on tons of things all over the place. They're literally on your food packages. So they could do something like that. And if they didn't want to connect these two things, right? This with that. Number two, or I guess three. Three, the third option, don't do reholders. Any reholder has to be regraded. Now, they've come out and said that before in the past. Because I remember someone like their comic book got like water damage and it leaked through the case, and then they tried to send it in and they give it a whole new grade, and it was a terrible grade. It was like one of my first videos. It was a long time ago or something. I can't really remember. But I believe that they don't. I think even on their website they say they don't regrade it. But in any case, they obviously don't, because then they would have graded that thing down lower, the Spider-Man 252, or whatever's going on, or if they're sneaking in qualified into Universal. I'm not sure exactly how they're doing it, but they could do that. CGC could say, okay, any reholder is going to be regraded. And let's say it costs $40 to regrade this particular book. Maybe they give you a $5 off for a reholder. They're like, okay, we're going to regrade it. It's going to be $5 less. I don't know. I don't know what they do. It would do one of two things if they did that. If they just regraded everything reholdered, or they just don't do reholders at all. And they're like, look, you broke the case. You just got to get it regraded. A lot of people are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Persnickety about their cases. And I'm always like, the case is just the thing to the comic, is what you're buying. You're not buying this plastic. I get it if there's a big crack right here, right? It doesn't look that great. But you're really buying the comic book. You're not buying this plastic thing. This thing is probably $5. It doesn't matter if it's an Action number 1 or this Daredevil 186. It's still the same plastic $5. It's not worth anything. You're buying the fact that it's certified. So a lot of people are like, oh, there's like a little scratch up here. And I'm like, so? Like, you're not buying it. And I get it. It's like if there's a big thing, I'm just like, well, I'm trying to hang it on my wall. But some people are just very persnickety of their cases. And I'm like, you do realize you're buying the book. That's what you're buying. You're not buying the case. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. That's just my personal opinion. Some people are very adamant about having their case. And the thing is, like, a lot of these cases, you'll get them back from CGC, and they'll have, like, just from the process itself, they'll get these, like, little micro cracks in it. They're not real cracks, but they're just something going on with the plastic itself. I get them all the time back from CGC, and it's like, whatever, who cares? Because they're usually on the side. No one sees that. Even if you're facing it like this in on your wall or something like that, up there, you're not going to see the sides. I don't know. But anyways, that's just my feelings on the case stuff. So, I don't know. I hope CGC does do something and doesn't do nothing. I will tell you this. Back in the day, there was a person that was doing micro trimming. Now, if you don't know what trimming is usually there's a little bit of overhang on books from the cover to the book. And a lot of people, it's like they get damaged, so they trim it. They trim it so it looks nicer. Trimming's, no, don't do that. It's restoration, people hate it. It's the worst type of restoration there is. And because there's no going back. Like color touch, you can scrape away, or, it ends up being worse looking, but you can get rid of it. Trimming, you can't add to the book once you cut the book. So long ago, there's a guy. I want to say his name was Dan, but I can't remember. It was many. This is before CBC ever existed. It was just PGX and CGC. That was the only people that existed. PGX actually came out 2 years after CGC, and they kind of dropped the ball overall. Anyways, so there's a guy named Dan. I think his name is Dan something. And he would micro trim, and CGC for the longest time couldn't catch it. But collectors would crack them out of cases, and they'd be like, wait, what's going on with this book? And it took a while. And micro trim, he's like, I don't know what the hell he used, but maybe like, the sharpest tool ever or something. But he just trimmed like this tiniest little sliver off these books, and no one would catch it. And it'd make it, just slightly nicer, to get that little grade bump. And yeah, they finally caught him. They banned him permanently. I don't know how they ended up banning him, like what their process is banning him. And then the guy went to PGX. And he started submitting through PGX, which hurt their reputation. And that, and among other things, is why they never really grew. I mean, they exist still, but I mean, think about it. You came out 2 years after CGC, and CBCS came out like almost 10 years after CGC, and CBCS has gobbled up more market share than PGX. So, yeah, poorly run business. In general, if there's a way to cheat the systems, people are going to do it. There's just people out there like that they just exist, especially when there's tens of thousands of dollars on the line. So it's up to CGC to make that not happen. I gave a couple ways they could. They'll never listen to me or even watch this video, but hopefully they do something in response to this. Go back to the drawing board, figure out. I always thought it was kind of stupid how they had them not attached to the actual label. So yeah, etch it. That would be the easiest. Unless there's some way that I don't know of, I have no idea, how you would open this up and slide in a book. Like, yeah, it's like really glued in there or whatever it is. So if there's a way that they could like slide in a different book, I have no idea. Or, just get rid of the reholding process altogether. If you want a new holder, you have to buy it with the grading. That's simple. Yeah, it sucks for the person who has like a cracked case because someone shipped it bad, or they dropped it on their own. But it is what it is. I don't know. I mean, just have a cracked case. Just keep it as a cracked case. That's my thoughts. People ask me my thoughts. There it is. Have a good day.